Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Karla Eli Show. I'm your host, Karla Eli, and I'm here to help you restore your healthy mindset. And today I have a wonderful guest with me. Her name is Melissa Flanagan. Please let me know if I pronounce that right, Melissa.
Correct.
And I have been following her for almost a year and a half now. And I think that to a lot of you ladies who are either struggling with self-love, self-respect, finding yourself, finding your purpose, and really stepping into womanhood comfortably, not necessarily needing a partner, I think she's going to be a great person that we can learn from. So, Melissa, please take it away. I want to start off with asking you, how old are you? And if you could if you could provide a little bit of more context as to who you are and how you started your content creation journey and your, you know, self-help and self-growth journey. Please take it away.
But hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful. So I'm 33, and so my content journey on TikTok started about 2 years ago. I had a conversation with my friend, and we were out walking one day, and I was like, "Oh, I feel like I should be doing something, but I don't know what it is I should be doing." And she was like, "What about therapy? Like, what about counseling? Like, you're really good in those avenues. Like, why don't you go down that route?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure." Because I think I can understand where she's coming from. I think in my friendship role and even family, I kind of take on that advisor role and I'm like a good listener. So I could see where she was coming from, but I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure." So then later on we had a completely separate conversation and she was like, "Oh, let me show you something. Like, do you remember this colleague we used to work with?" She brought up TikTok, and this girl had just blown up on TikTok, and at the time I didn't even have TikTok. So I'm looking, I was like, whoa, like she came from like the same background as us, and now she's like living in LA now. Like, she completely changed her life around, and it was all through TikTok. So that kind of planted the seed later on, where it was like I think it was a couple of months after, I was like ruminating, thinking like, "Oh, should I just download it? Like, should I just do it?" So I did. I downloaded TikTok, and it my first name was Notebook Wisdom, because I love learning. I love podcasts. I just love learning. And I always write down like nuggets of wisdom, like information that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's gold." So I've ended up over the years with just like notebooks after notebooks of just golden nuggets. So I was like, I'll use the notebooks as content so it feels less scary that it's not me. So I did. I was using the notebooks for a while, and then as I got a bit more confident and braver, I turned the camera like actually onto me, and then I started speaking, and it just actually came much more naturally than I thought it would. So I think, yeah, that's how it got started on TikTok.
And I actually met you through your that username. You said note, was it note to self? Was it, or what was it
So
again?
it was Notebook Wisdom, and then I changed it to Girls Talk Sense, but it is note to self. So the actual, yeah, it's two different, yeah. So the bottom you always see note to self.
Yeah, so that's actually my first impression of you. And you shared something about how to get him obsessed with you. I think that's one of the first ones I really cannot remember because it was such a long time ago. I always see your stuff and I'm like, "Ooh, this is good. Ooh, this is good." So I kind of just followed up with you, and that's amazing. I first when I started TikTok, I had no idea that I was gonna blow up the way that I did. If I would have known that I would have blown up or would have been, in this industry, I would have done things so much differently. So I'm glad that you kind of found that sense of kind of like push because we do need more women who are coming from different backgrounds, who come from different countries, who grew up with different cultures, because you will find your community in which we'll talk about thoroughly later on in this conversation. So thank you so much for adding context. And have you had women like reach out to you and be like, you literally saved me, or you have helped me adjust my mindset. Have you had any of those comments or testimonies yet?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, a lot came through when the TikTok ban was enforced, and the girls were like, "If I don't get to like say this again, like you've changed my life." And you, I was reading it like, "Oh my!" You don't actually realize as a content creator the impact that you're having on other people. And these were American girls because obviously it was still around in England. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like it was so touching and heartwarming that just something that I think is fun. And I do want girls, it is always for the girls. I want them to feel the best selves, and I don't want them to be taken advantage of, which I find that they usually are in dating scenarios. It, just like for my, like just to have like a tiny impact on them was like a huge boost. And I was like, I want to keep going. I really want to branch out. So I was really grateful that you asked me in your podcast. I think we have similar kind of audiences that have that want to grow, want to meet somebody, want to learn, want to just be the best selves. So it was a good fit.
No, 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 absolutely. And I mean, I'll go ahead and add this context as well. The reason why I always ask my guests to, mention their age is because I want the ladies to understand, like, even if you're, 40, 45, 50, 55, 16, 17, it's never too late to start on this glow up, leveling up journey, like, because no one is going to do it for you. And I think that our voices amplify. That's why I love that there's women from different ages, different backgrounds, and they can find the woman that can help them. So I one of the main reasons why I invited you because I feel like you do such a great job at explaining self-love and self-respect. So please tell us, how did you even start your self-help, self-growth journey, or have you always been kind of in tune with who you are as a woman?
No, so my journey started, I'm going to say when I was about 17. So I'm 33. Well, I'm 33 in March, so soon. So it's been a very long process. It's not happened overnight, but it actually, so when I was younger, I suffered really badly with low self-esteem and low self-worth, which morphed into like social anxiety. So it got to the point where leaving the house was becoming a problem. And I'd be sweating, my heart would be racing, like my mouth would be dry. It was like terrifying. Things would just felt so intense. And I never actually shared it with anybody. I always kept it to myself because I thought no one else seems to have these problems. Like I'd look around at my friends or my family, and it'd be like I felt like I was the only one. So because I felt like I couldn't, I felt like a bit of a freak. So I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody. Like they'll think I'm a weirdo. So I started reading books, like reading online about the subconscious mind, how thought patterns and beliefs and limiting beliefs like really influence your reality. And it was all a perception, like it's my perception that was creating like these scary scenarios that wasn't actually scary. Um, so it started when I was really young. It started from me not having any self-esteem, any self-confidence, to just desperately trying to be more at peace with myself and like more confident and just have some confidence and self-belief. So yeah, it stemmed from not having any. Um, and one of the things that I always remember actually was when I was working, because people do ask me like how do you sort of like change those thoughts? And the first thing that I always say is like be aware of them, which is easy to say, but there was one time when I was working, so I used to be a fit model, and my session, so I'd start my first fit session at 9 a.m. and the last one would be at 6 p.m. So it was just back to back, it was constant. And on one of my breaks, I went to the toilet and I looked in the mirror, and I was about to like berate myself internally. And I remember like looking in the mirror being like, your skin's so oily and greasy and your hair's a mess. And it was like, and I don't know what, it just sort of like I caught myself about to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, why am I like, what am I doing? Like I'm about to be so cruel to myself. Like I've been fitting all day, like it's summer, I'm tired, like it's exhausting, I'm sweating. Like I think the expectation I had in my head was like I should look like I've just walked out of a salon, you know, like, but I've not. I've just walked out of a changing room and I've been trying on clothes like one after the other for hours. Like, how else am I supposed to look? And then it was also thinking like I've looked like this all day. Nobody else has batted an eyelid at me. Like it's coming from me. Like it's in my head. Like I'm creating all these awful thoughts about myself that are so unnecessary. Um, so that was
Can I pause there because I want to understand that a little bit more, because I think a lot of women are going to relate to this. So, were you used to speaking awfully about yourself before even like being aware? Was it normal to you to speak awfully? Because whenever I think of model or like fitness model or anybody who has, you know, a public figure complex, I think, wow, they must be absolutely confident to do what they're doing. It would have never came across my mind that a fitness model or a model or anybody who's in the public eye would ever be like speaking about themselves or to themselves in this way. So, was speaking about yourself in this way normal to you?
it was so normal that I didn't even know it was happening. Like that was the first time that I'd become aware in the mirror was like it didn't have a start and a finish. It didn't have a start and an end. It was like a loop, like a constant loop that I didn't even realize until that one day that I caught myself and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's no wonder I feel so bad. Like I would, if anyone heard me talk to myself the way they would have been like, what on earth is wrong with this girl? Like, why?
Well, the thing is, I feel like they would have understood you, because this is also coming to a big like eye-opening experience for me to understand women who are y- insecure and are still in those frequencies and vibrations. Because I thought in my head what was normal is like, oh my gosh, I look so good today. Oh wow, that color looks good on me. Or, if I do have greasy skin, to be like, oh my gosh, my skin looks probably so glowy because I was just in the sun, whatever. That was normal to me. So whenever, I had on this journey of making friends and finding out who my girlfriends were, whenever I came across a very insecure woman, I was very much turned off by it, and I thought that that was not normal. So I would go the other way. However, through my career and through really helping women understand, like, you are your biggest supporter, you are your biggest cheerleader, I realized that for a lot of women, actually speaking negatively is normal for them because that's what, one, maybe they saw growing up, or two, um, I think genetics also has a big part to do with it as well. So maybe you didn't see it growing up, but like your mom practices that and your mom's mom practiced that, and then it goes on through generations. Because in my family, my mom was very confident and she never had to state it, she just embodied that. My grandma is also very confident, again, never has to state it, but embodies that. And so I grew up with women being very confident. And hence, I was very confident. And in those moments of insecurity, I did express them. And my mom was really there for me to say, like, oh, let go of those thoughts right now. Like, we're not having that. You're going through, puberty, you're going through these emotions, very high and lows. Like, it's normal, but don't allow your emotions to get the best of you. And don't speak of yourself in that way because you're telling me as my daughter that I didn't do a good job in creating you. And so if I wouldn't have my mom kind of there for me and even me feeling comfortable enough to share what I thought, I think I would have grown up very differently, or maybe my mindset wouldn't be as quote unquote healthy, because I think that it's healthy to be confident and love who you are. This doesn't mean that I don't see my weaknesses. Of course, I see, the things that aren't so healthy about me, or maybe, could be improved, but I've accepted them. Um, but regardless, like, please explain. I don't know if you can even go even deeper, or like what's the first step that anybody could do if they're in that realm right now of speaking to themselves negatively? Like, what would you recommend for them to do, from your experiences, but also through the testimonies of women like saying you've really helped me? Please.
I think that is such a blessing that you grew up like that. I don't think that's so rare because I know, like, personally, I didn't. And my family never also they never I never heard my mum or my sisters speaking about badly about themselves. So I actually don't know where I picked that up from. Um, like just being aware of your thoughts would be the very first. That was my first sort of like awakening as like, oh my gosh, like it's me, like it's internal self-talk. And then the second thing I'd be, it's how you perceive yourself. So if you perceive yourself, if you're always focused on the negative, if you always pick the most negative thing you could possibly pick about yourself, your appearance, your habits, like what you're doing, your mind is just constantly going to berate you and say like you're awful, like you're not good enough, you're not. Whereas if you kind of can shift your focus even just slightly onto like the more positive, like what did I do today that was good, like what did I like today? Well, I liked the top and the dress that I picked out. I love how I feel like in that dress. I love how I look in that dress. Even if like you've ate badly all day, because usually for women it's always about how we look. So it just is, isn't it? Um, so if you could just even like slightly start shifting your focus onto, well, what was good and what did I like, what made me feel good. It's kind of like you're just trying to alter your perspective, even a tiny bit at first, and then slowly but surely start noticing like, well, it's more like feelings. It's what makes you feel good instead of what makes you feel bad. I think we're so programmed to focus on like what makes us feel bad that we automatically, our brains are just on a loop of, and it's a loop of the same thoughts as well. Like it doesn't change. It's so it is going to be breaking a habit of a lifetime for some people, but it is just that shift in focus of what do I like, what is good, what makes me feel good, and trying to focus a bit more on that instead of, well, I feel bad or I feel this makes me feel like. It is trying to break a habit of a lifetime, and it's really hard. It's taken me like a long time. Like I say, I was 17, I'm 33 in a couple of months. It won't happen overnight, but it can happen. For me,
Oh,
like I feel the way you feel now. Like when I look in the mirror, I don't remember the last time I ever said something like really awful, like negative, or I just think like I don't have. It's either I feel good or it's neutral. There's no negativity, which I never thought I'd get to this place, but it can happen. It's just shifting focus, which will eventually like mold your mindset and the things that you do notice in the future.
yeah, no, this is really good. And because what I realized too, I used to think that insecure women wanted to be insecure. I used to think like, oh, insecure women are also bad women or just bad people. They don't have love in their hearts because all the women who have either done me wrong or who were mean, who were, catty, were also insecure. And so it wasn't until this career that really opened my eyes and I was like, oh my gosh, a lot of these women don't want to be this way. They don't want to be this way. And it's emotionally draining, emotionally exhausting. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize how much work it actually is to be so negative. And so I have a lot of compassion and a lot of empathy for the ladies who are barely waking up and realizing I don't want this for my life. And you mentioned about having anxiety. And so I feel like controversial opinion, I think, or hot take, I think that over labeling things is also very unhealthy for our society and our community, especially right now with a lot of mental health awareness. I do think that there's some individuals who do have that chemical imbalance, who do suffer chronically from either depression or anxiety, ADHD, whatnot. However, I do feel like this over labeling ourselves and over diagnosing ourselves is in a way impairing us from getting better. Like, how did you remove that level of, well, I'm just someone who is anxious and I have anxiety attacks to, this woman that you are now? Like, did you let go of that thought as well? Or are you still an anxious person because you're introverted? Does this make sense? I hope that this is
Yes.
making.
Yeah, very much. So actually, when I did have social anxiety, I didn't have a clue what it was. I just thought there was something wrong with me because when I was at school, they weren't conversations that none of my friends were having. I'd never even heard of anxiety. I'd never heard of it was just, it didn't come up. Like I would never know to say to somebody, I've got social anxiety. I just felt panic and fear. And I was always trying to avoid it, but which made the panic and fear worse because the more you try to avoid, you can't, it's so debilitating, you can't carry on life. Like it was scary leaving the house. Like it was becoming ridiculous. But to tell someone that I felt like more shame, because it was like, I don't know why, what this is, like why I have it. Um, so actually, eventually, more in my 20s, I did start like speaking a little bit more about it to my mum. I was like, I feel this way. And then to a friend at work that I worked with, and she said that she had hypnotherapy. So I was like, oh, like, because I was so into like the mind and the subconscious mind, I was like, that's it, like that's what I need. So I did actually have hypnotherapy, which worked really well for like my social anxiety. For it was more like crowds of places would freak me out. Like there's a really famous street in Manchester called Market Street. It's just like a sense overload. There's just so much going on, and it just used to set off this like absolute panic. And again, I never told anyone. I just thought I was weird. So that's kind of what I addressed in the hypnotherapy session. And within like 4 sessions, I hadn't even realized it had worked until one morning I was walking up to work and I was like, I feel fine. Like, oh my God, like I actually feel okay. Like I'm not scared, I'm not panicked, I don't feel anxious, I'm not nervous, like I'm okay. So hypnotherapy actually was something that did help me on my journey. It was, and it is something now I am interested in still. I do tend to listen to YouTube hypnotherapy like at night time, just sometimes if I have something coming up and I want to feel calm and just a bit more at peace with or relaxed if it's a stressful situation. I just think everything is to do with energy and the mind and thoughts, and a lot of it is subconscious. So what you were saying about your subconscious mind obviously is very pro you, like it's so for you, whereas so many other people it's just so against them, and it's trying to break a habit of a lifetime, like trying to become somebody you want to be, but you have all this unconscious like limiting beliefs that's just stopping you. And even now I do still suffer, like I'm fine confidence wise, social wise, but there is areas of my life where I know I'm holding myself back, and it's trying to break out of that is the scariest thing ever. Like actually, you're so on New Year's Eve, I posted a video sort of saying like, New Year's Eve resolutions, like trying to break out of um your comfort zone. And I wasn't actually going to post that video because I was like, oh, it's a bit cringe, like it's whatever. And I was like, Melissa, no, like you're doing it again, just post it. And then after that, you messaged me like 20 minutes later. And I was like, if I held myself back from that message, we would.
No, yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to reach out to you for a while now, but I'm glad that it ended up working out that way because I feel the same way as someone who, posts a lot of her personal life and, all of the things, relationships and dating. I feel the same way sometimes, but in those moments of vulnerability, that's when just things start working out because we feel safe enough to either reach out, comfortable enough to ask, for example, like for me to ask you to be a part of the conversation, a part of the podcast. And I really look for that vulnerability as someone who's looking for women who is because I take care of my community a lot. So, as someone who's very selective with the women she decides to work with, I look for that vulnerability and for that kind of like cringe because that takes a level of self-awareness and maturity to be okay with who you are and to be okay with where you are in life. So, not at all. Keep you're doing it right. If you feel like, oh, this is a little cringe, that's how you know that you're doing it right because it's calling the right people to you. And I 100% agree with you on the subconscious and what you said. I feel like that's so quotable about your mind is so for you, so you're able to do the best for yourself. But when your mind is against you, you're so impaired. Like your body's in constant battle with each other. And you remind me a little bit of like my husband's archetype because my husband is very similar. Like when we were living in a city, he absolutely hated it. And we were living in a beautiful city. Um, I'm from San Diego, California. There's beaches, like we're around beautiful beaches. And the weather is amazing. There's palm trees everywhere. It's very refreshing, but my husband absolutely hated it because of the panic he would get from being overly stimulated by traffic, by people, by restaurants, by color, by all these things. And we recently moved to a smaller area, a smaller town where there's a lot of more trees, less people. It's a small town vibe. And he is so much more relaxed just by the environment shift and the environment change. And what really has helped me understand more people like you is the Enneagram. Not sure if you've heard about the Enneagram or different personality types and different defense mechanisms, but a lot of, since I'm faith-based, a lot of women dislike when I talk about the Enneagram because they think it's like demonic or something. But no, it's based off of like just research and patterns in humans where some of us are our strength is either our heart, which is like you're very emotionally driven. Some people like my husband, I believe a little bit more like you, it's the mind, like they filter their life through the mind. And then there's people like me who filter life through the body. So I'm very quick at picking up energies. I'm very quick at like realizing when I'm not feeling okay, when I'm very, my body picks it up first and then my mind realizes it and then my heart feels it. So it's a very interesting tool that I think that would very much help you and the women that you are helping because you get to see like other people's blind spots and you feel normal. You feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. Because for me, what I feel is rage and anger at a different level. Because I'm more of like a passive aggressive person. Like that's my blind spot. And sometimes I show it maybe when I'm posting videos and recording myself because I don't feel panic or anxiety or any of those things. My husband is a little bit more like that because he filters his life through the mind. I filter my life through the body. So if someone does me wrong or if someone injustice is like a trigger for me at a different level, like at a very, very different level. And so there's women who I usually mentor who filter their life through the heart, where they're emotionally irregulated. They don't know how to establish self-control or how to make good decisions for themselves because they go based off of what they feel in that moment. It's a very it's a very good tool that I recommend anybody to invest in and look into because it makes you feel human. Like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. And it's a great tool to see like where on the spectrum of healthy you are. It's a great tool. If you haven't looked into it, I really recommend it. But anyways, this is a good segue to talking about um, I've seen multiple videos of you where let's talk about dating real quick. We're transitioning into dating. Um, how have these mindset shifts for you impacted your either maybe not yours, but what you've seen? If you don't feel comfortable sharing any personal testimonies of the way that you view dating and the way that you've approached dating and love in general, if you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah. So with I I like you actually, I do have quite I'm very intuitive and I base a lot of my decisions on the energy I pick up from other people. And I think I'm quite observant of that and I feel it like almost immediately. And I definitely use it in dating. Like so I do not online date and I don't have anything against it. I don't think it would works for me. I don't see it working for many people. Like my online community, my family, friends, I just don't see it working that great. So I think more because people pretend, people wear masks, and people wear masks in real life, but it's so much easier to hide behind pictures and a few quotes and a few text messages until you actually meet the person and you get a vibe for their energy and you know who they are and you can kind of like feel if you've got that chemistry or not. I just think, what is the point? So in my own dating life, I don't date so much because I actually find it really difficult to meet someone that because I often what I find, so I meet obviously a lot of men out when I'm just out and about, or especially if I'm out on a night out or in a bar or something. But men always have the same masks. I always feel like I have to, it's the same type of mask, like it's either loads of bravado and flashing money and flashing this and it's kind of like I see through it like immediately. And I find it really rare someone who's just actually like really authentic, interested in me, not interested in like making themselves like boosting their own ego and looking good in front of the friends because it's just I find it difficult to find authentic people that I want to date. Um, so I don't date so much. But I recently went on a date with a guy who was really so the is it enneagrams you're just talking about?
Yeah. Hmm.
I have to look into I love anything new and juicy like that, so I will sink my teeth into that.
It's good. I recommend getting the book. It's like an orange book cover, the original one. Don't get any of like the new ones. The original one is by Don Richard Russo. Get the original one. That one's really good. And it goes deep. It goes really deep on into understanding the subconscious mind, and then you get to see like which reptiles practice the same like defense mechanism as us. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So I recommend for you to look into it. Yeah, but
Yeah,
anyway, sorry I cut you off.
I definitely am going to do that. And I've also been learning about like attachment style. So recently I was talking and dating this guy who so genuine and I we had such good chemistry and I really fancied him and I was like, oh my gosh, like excited. But the more we were kind of like talking and getting to know each other, the more I was like, he's avoidant. So I'm learning about like attachment styles. I think I've discovered I'm fearful avoidant and he's avoidant. So I was like, regardless of our chemistry and regardless of like our attraction to each other, I this isn't for me. Like I can't, it's there, but I'm not going to force something. Like that's something that's out of my control. It's from his, like it's all obviously it stems from childhood. There's nothing I can do about that. So I'm becoming more aware of like these attachment styles as well. And I think sometimes like my advice, this is the problem that I have with my own advice. Okay, so I do these how to make obsessed with you videos, and I have pulled back from that recently because I've realized my energy is what makes those things. So they're like byproducts of the energy I've been in, and those that I'm labeling these things as tactics because I don't know how else to put them across. If I could write down 10 tactics to use, but if the energy behind those tactics is one of desperation and needing like validation and like craving him and like has to have it, we're not going to have the same results. Like my free flowing, take it or leave it energy is not going to be the same as somebody who's like using them for I have to have this man, I have to get him to be obsessed with me.
And let's stop there. Let's talk about this. This is something that I've also been talking about recently because I did use the dating apps and I found my husband. We've been married for 3 years now, but I think it worked because of the kind of caliber of a woman that I am. So I always say this, like if you put me in a room with 100 men and out of those 100 men, only three of them are good men, I'm gonna catch them and I'm gonna find them and they're gonna come to me. They're going to come to me, and all the other men, I'm going to know that they're toxic. However, that's because of the energy that I'm in. And just because I had some results doesn't mean that maybe someone else who tries the same thing is going to. If the intention isn't from a place of self-love and self-respect. A lot of people like to think that what we do, how we think, how we move is a game. But what we see it as is no, it's actually boundaries, self-respect, and loving ourselves. It doesn't come from a place of, well, if I do this, then he's going to do this. No, it comes from a place of like, I'm actually going to say no, or I'm actually going to protect my heart by not pursuing this relationship even further because I already know myself and, the ball's at his court, but I'm not expecting anything in return. So I 100% agree with what you are saying. And it's interesting because in the beginning of my career, I was also very much like, make him obsessed, make him do this, because, that content will always, I think, be very much wanted and very much viewed. And I stepped away from that as well because I realized personally in my life, like I'm still attracting everyone. Like I go out and I get asked out at least once or twice. And because my husband is like, he's a hard worker and he's a first responder and he has like works a lot. He's either sleeping or if he's not sleeping, he's working. And so I also continue to live my life and I also have my own hobbies outside of just my relationship. And so wherever I go, like I'm attracting like high caliber men and without wanting to, without warning. And so we also have to like protect ourselves by not letting other people access our energy because it's the same way. However, whenever I give my advice, I make sure to state now if it doesn't come from a good place, if it comes from a place of manipulation, from control, from fear, from ego and hurt, you are not going to have the same results that I did because I did the inner work. I invested in myself. I know who I am, and I'm not desperate looking for someone to give me something that I could, one, provide for myself, but also like I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking where I want to be in 10 years from now. So I think that it is also very toxic and damaging for young women and for women who want marriage and who are looking for like a stable relationship. I think it's so damaging. And I participated in this, I'll own up to it, for them to receive the kind of content that sometimes we might put out about make him obsessed, or this whole new phenomenon of black cat energy, black cat and golden retriever energy. A lot of people wanting to pretend that they are like fully independent, maybe a little mysterious. You can't fake it till you make it in dating, maybe in your career and with work, but not when in terms of relationships and dating, because this goes deeper than just surface level things. Does this make sense? And would you agree
Yeah,
with?
absolutely. I think you attract people at the same energy that you're in. So I feel like exactly what you were just saying. You go out and you've already this like high value woman. You feel amazing about yourself. You're not like you have a husband, but he's not your life and soul, and like he doesn't make up every inch of your life. You have a life separate from him, and that's where your energy is you with you. It's not always with him, and that's what creates the experiences that you have. I feel like and this is I've also partook in participated in kind of like that a little bit toxic culture as well, where I was sometimes insecure in those, and I didn't realize I was being manipulative. It was from a place of, so what I realized now is like I think I'm fearful avoidant, so I want connection and I want intimacy, but I almost am like, oh no, too much. So I'm like, I'll push it, push it back. And then the guys do, I don't think they're used to many women being, I think they're used to anxious women who kind of chase. Whereas I'm like, I'll initiate. I don't mind that, but I'm absolutely not going to chase you. And if you get a bit too close to me, I'm going to be like,
Mhm.
back off. But I think those types of that kind of energy attracts men because they see it as like, oh, a conquest, like I have to conquer her. But I was coming from a place of insecurity of like, oh, this is scary. So it wasn't tactics on my behalf. It was more cope, and those coping mechanisms sort of kind of did make the men obsessed. But then I don't know what his history is, what his attachment is, why he was drawn to that. Um, but I do think men do have that this kind of like want to conquer you kind of energy anyway, just innate. So a lot of what I sort of like just embodied naturally, I do find does draw men in and they are attracted to it. But to put it as a tactic, I'm kind of like, I shouldn't really do that because the energy of the girls that are messaging me, that's not the energy you want to be in. Like, you can do all the things that I've said I've done and work, but not with this energy. Like, it's not going to work that way for you. He's going to see through it. He's going to feel your energy. He's going to take more advantage of you. You're going to feel worse. It's kind of just like you really have to bring it home first and heal and make yourself feel like you're your first priority. And you just naturally, those things just draw to you, the right people, the right time. It just happens.
No, 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 no. I completely agree. And you know what? This reminds me of the girl that does the sprinkle sprinkle lady. I always speak about her. She's so funny. I think she's hilarious. However, a lot of people started saying, "Oh, her advice isn't good. Her advice doesn't work." And I even said that too. I was like, I don't think her advice works for the season of my life that I was in. However, I think it's because she also resonates in a specific type of energy. And I think that we're misleading and misguiding a lot of young ladies who want like that provider masculine man. Because let me tell you something, my ladies know this about me, but I can't be with a man who's like an inch of like even like this much. I can't do it when he's feminine. I can't. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. I don't know. That's just like my type. I really like masculine, very much of those like I pursuing types, so much so that my husband is like, well, even for what he does for work, it's very much my type. Like that's what I tend to be attracted to. Um, and so going back to how it might be a little bit toxic for these women is because I speak a lot on this, like you want to attract a masculine man, do this. But it's the same thing whenever I get DMs, I'm like, I don't see myself working with you, or you're not even ready to work with me because it's going to be really hard for you to accept, like you're going to have to break down almost every single part of your soul to get better. And I feel like a lot of people are scared to do that because it does take time. And finally, now, not finally, but now I'm receiving success stories from the women who have worked with me after 2 years. Now they're starting to see results, but it's because we had to break it down to their heart and to their mind as to what was going on in there and understand. And then I step in, but it requires them to be like, okay, I'm open. I know that I'm not perfect. Tell me what I am doing wrong. And I realize that if the women are not in that energy, they're not ready to like work and level up. And it sucks to say that, but that's why I stepped away from posting content like that because I didn't want to attract that type of caliber of a woman. I wanted to attract women who were like, no, I'm deep. I need something deeper than that. And when I marry, I want to marry because I know who I am, I know my standards, and I'm looking at the long-term vision. So I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
No, I think we've covered it all. I just think like it's your energy. I'm a massive believer in energy. Like that's what you're going to attract. I think it was Dr. Tara Swartz that said you attract people who are at the same emotional wounds that you have or that you're at. And it makes so much sense. And it definitely I can say that has been the case for me. Um,
Definitely.
like my ex partners, like I would never see them now. I would not, we wouldn't be on the same, we're just not there, on different paths, like different dimensions. But back then we were so suited, and it's only natural that you outgrow these people and they outgrow you and you go your separate ways because you're growing all the time, and if you're working on yourself all the time, you're becoming a different version of you all the time, and hopefully a better version of you. But yeah, I just think always work on yourself, always be healing your energy, always be working on your self-esteem. Anything you can do to kind of like heal, that's what you're going to attract in.
100%. And you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about that. Like, how did you make that hard decision of letting go of that ex relationship? Because I also work with women who are in relationships where they're outgrowing their partner. And fortunately, I say fortunately, they're boyfriend and girlfriends. They're not husband and wife because, frankly, that would be awful if one person was growing in the marriage and the other person was in a way stagnant. That'd be very unfortunate. I'm not a supporter of divorce, but a lot of these women who are in like 5 year relationships, 2, 3 year relationships where, they're outgrowing their counterparts, what would your recommendation be to like self-soothe? Like it's okay to let them go. It's okay that they don't are not going to join you in the next chapter of your life. Please share.
It is a difficult one, but again, I think it comes back to you and your energy. I imagine if you want your partner to change, really maybe you should be looking at like why do you need him to change so much, like maybe you should look at the reasons, like why you counting on him to change to make you feel better. Like maybe you should work on your own energy and heal what needs to be healed. You'll behave completely different, your energy will be completely different, you'll probably interact with him completely different, and just your energy alone will change him. Like he'll respond to you differently, you'll have a different relationship just from you healing whatever it is that needs to be healed. And people, it's hard to say, people do outgrow each other, and it is if the other person just is not interested, or they have toxic habits that are detrimental to the health, to the well-being of the relationship, there's not much you can change other people, you can only change yourself. And I think if you're doing your absolute utmost to be the best version of you, and that person sort of like isn't responsive to that, it's not for me to say like stay in or leave it. It's up to the person, but I think it definitely, I would start with yourself first without looking to the other person to change.
Thank you. You know what? You just opened my eyes to something um that I never actually said it, but I was embodying it and practicing it. This is key, ladies. Rewind what she said. She said, I think if you level up and just stop responding to certain behaviors and require something else, and from how you feel of leveling up, they will respond differently to you. Meaning, if he isn't responding, isn't putting any effort, isn't respecting you, isn't doing these things, when you level up first, he only has two options: either show you his true colors and not participate in that leveling up with you and give you the treatment that you deserve, or the second thing, which I hope they do, is because they love you, they're going to respond to that leveled up version of yourself and get with the program. And most of the time, at least in the relationship that I'm in, if I'm leveling up, my husband follows right behind me, or vice versa, depending on the area that we're both expanding on. Because he loves me, he's responding to the way that I'm responding to myself. And I always say, like, women are the brains of a marriage, because truly, we're the ones who kind of dictate the growth of the relationship, whether it proceeds or whether it doesn't, whether we let it go. And how Melissa was saying, it's always up to you. I'm never going to be the one to tell you you need to break up with your partner. I'm always going to show you the pros and the cons, but I will never be the person to say, let them go or do this, because that's not what I'm here for. You need to realize and come to that conclusion for yourself if that is the best decision for yourself. But what Melissa has just stated, as you level up, as you invest more in yourself and do the inner work, the only option everybody else has around you is to get with the program and respond in the same way. And that's how you either, let go of the people who are not there to support you and gain new people who are there to support you, which leads me to the next question that I have for you, Melissa. For the women who want to create more girl friendships, I saw that you created an entire community of like hiking and walking, an exercise group, if you will. So please share your story on that. Like, how did you create that? And towards the end, like, any tips that you recommend for women like myself who are in their 20s, kind of still floating through life, if you will, but we're interested in gaining new girlfriends. Like, what are some green and red flags? But first, share your story on this exercise group that you created.
So I'm going to go back to energy again, but the energy I was in of getting out of my comfort zone is what caused me to start TikTok. From there, I created the community. I actually, one of my good friends I met through TikTok, she DM'd me, and that was another scary meeting her. It was like going on a first date. I was like, what am I doing? I'm meeting a girl, a stranger I've met online. I don't know a thing about, like, what am I doing? Me and her are like just so tight now. Like, she's one of my really good friends. Um, I also dropped an old friendship that I thought we were friends, but I think I was just holding on to someone that I could do social things with, and we weren't actually. It wasn't a real true friendship. I dropped that, which was also out of my comfort zone. And then months later, I met a friend that I'd known years ago, but we hadn't spoken in like 10 years. She'd moved away and we got back in contact. Um, so I started creating new friends. Then when I was like, I'm thinking about doing a walking group, like, because me, those new friends that I'd met, we were out walking because they resonated more with my energy. So it was like a natural fit. So I'd say to them, like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this. They were really supportive. They were like, you should do it. They've always turned up to every single outing that I've been on. So it was, I know, honestly. So it's kind of like, again, the energy of just putting yourself forward, like dropping what doesn't belong to you, stop holding on to things that make you feel safe and that are familiar, and just kind of like bring grin and bearing it, and just putting yourself in situations that feel like unfamiliar, you're a little bit unsafe, it's not, you're not sure of yourself. Those are the situations where like they change your life, like they actually do. And the walking group I have now, I wouldn't have if it wasn't for TikTok. And the girls are so like, we've got like a real good like little tight niche of beautiful girls that are just so supportive, and it's so lovely. And I never ever would have had that if I hadn't have just 2 years ago gotten out of my comfort zone and decided just to put myself out there on TikTok. All this has come from one decision that I probably, if I hadn't have just done that, none of it's like a domino effect, and none of it would have happened if I would have stayed in that familiar comfort zone.
I love that. And I feel comfortable enough to share too that I've the reason why I've been able to move so quickly because I recreated my entire life in 4 months from that transition and from that move. And the women that I have here now, they I could have never, I could have never been able to friends with them if I was still in the city my hometown. And so moving, I've even leveled up, I guess you could say, my friend group and my girlfriends because it's the same. They're so good. Like it's crazy to experience this level of like girlfriends. It's weird to say, but it's like I'm jealous of them. I feel like I'm more jealous of my girlfriends than I am of my husband. Like it's just a weird feeling of like love and compassion and like your support that you receive from them. It's very encouraging as well to launch whatever project you have and to support one another and every woman I think deserves this type of love because it it's just it's so fulfilling and it makes you so full and it makes your heart bigger, I think. So I'm right there with you. And it was because of not so much TikTok, but Instagram for me. Instagram was a place where I met a lot of my girlfriends that I have now and dropping, how you said, dropping all of those limiting beliefs and deciding, okay, I'm no longer in my hometown. I have to recreate my entire life. I have to recreate my friend group. I have to recreate everything. And because I came from the perspective of like, you only have one life to live. We only have one life to live. How are we going to express that one life? I want to live it to its fullest. So I want to surround myself with people who love me, who appreciate me, who see my worth. And because of that, I've never felt alone. I didn't have my family for the holidays, but because of this mindset, I was getting invited to very intimate Thanksgiving dinners. I know that you guys don't have Thanksgiving, but like holiday dinners, where it felt like family, where I was invited and I got to meet a different caliber of women and just people in general where they have so much value and quality as a person, as an individual, where, like I said, it's a whole other experience that makes your heart full and it makes you happy that you're alive in a way. It's a crazy experience. So I'm so happy that you made that choice for yourself and stepped out of your comfort zone because all of these blessings would have never really happened for you or for me because it's the same thing. I've met a lot of these women because of Instagram and now I'm able to connect with other wives who are in the same journey as me because their husbands are doing the same thing and we support one another. So it's a big blessing. And I hope for you ladies that are listening, like take this as your sign that whatever project you have in your heart or whatever idea you have in your mind and you don't know how to execute it yet, sometimes it just requires you to let go of those limiting beliefs and in a way, like your faith, God, the universe, what you may believe in, will guide you to your next step when you let go of that fear and of that anxiety and of that, what will they say? So I hope that this encourages you ladies to like really step into that energy. And so going on to, if you don't mind us transitioning, or do you have anything else to add before we transition to another question?
Just when you just said that, just something, people are always going to have something to say. Whenever you do something, whether you don't do something, people are going to talk about you regardless. People who, I mean, get scared, like now with TikTok, and more people that I know are telling me, like, oh, I saw your TikTok the other day, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, like, what? Like, because they don't know that side of me. But obviously, I know me, I know that side of me has been there all along. Um, but it is terrifying, but people are just, I just don't want people to not do things because they're scared about what other people are going to say. They're always going to talk, like we're just human. It's people are just curious. They might be like, oh, I weren't expecting that from her, or oh, did you see she did that? But it's just human, and we do it, they do it. Like, so don't let that hold you back. Like, some of it will be negative, some of it will be positive. It is what it is. Like, just don't let it stop you and just do it because it's going to happen anyway.
Exactly. And in regards to what will they say and stuff like that, like let them talk about you. If they're gonna talk about someone, I always say, if they're gonna talk about someone, let them talk about me. That's how important I am. Like it's okay. And it could be positive, it could be negative, whatever the case may be. But regardless, you're inspiring people and people are always in need to talk about something because I know that I very much exposed my life. And so, I mean, it is what it is. I know my purpose, I know my calling, and I know my why. So, again, everything you do stems from that self-love and self-respect. Hence why a lot of creators might give up halfway or might not make it because their intention, what they want, is to either be famous or to make a lot of money. Yeah, like people can read off of that. That's why a lot of, I see a lot of content creators or a lot of not even influencers yet who are posting content, but it's giving, I just want to be famous and I just want to make a lot of money. I don't care what I have to do. Those people I never support. I support the people who I've seen have consistency, might have small accounts, but are seriously like pouring their heart into what they do. And that's why I give, other creators a voice as well, because what, like, why not? So, hence why I'm very selective with the people that I, connect with and talk to. Um, but again, going back to energy, literally everything you do stems from that self-respect and that self-love. Everything, everything, everything. Dating, relationships, friendships, projects, work, everything. So you need to be established in here first. All right, we went on a little tangent, but in regards to finding your girlfriends, what are some like green flags and maybe some red flags that women like me, who I'm very empathetic, I'm very compassionate, I'm very like, let me give you my like I'm so open and because I have truly nothing to hide, but in terms of girlfriendships, I'm not an expert of women. Like I'm an expert of what they feel when they love and how they date and those patterns, and I'm an expert as well in like understanding men. I'm really good at understanding men. But when it comes to understanding women and maybe their intention to hurt or to not provide the same amount of energy or support, I'm very new to that. So I would love to hear from your experiences, green and red flags of, women friendships.
Yeah. I've had a fair share of friendships and cliques and groups and being pushed out and invited in and all the rest of it. Do you know one thing that I always look for is authenticity? It's somebody, so I think everybody wears masks. We all have social masks that we wear just to get on with each other. But I think one of the things I look for is how authentic that person can be with you and how much you can slide your mask down because of how comfortable they're making you feel and how authentic they're being back with you. So, like, one thing that I think is a red flag, sorry, is when someone cannot take their mask off and it stays on. So it's like they need to be seen with you here in this place, looking so happy at this, and it's very forced. It's like they need something from you rather than they're trying to give, like give friendship, um, experiences. I look for like someone who wants to share and not somebody who wants to take. So somebody who needs like social approval, that's not really for me. Like I get that kind of is like human nature to need social validation and social approval to be accepted, but not to the point where our relationship is becoming a bit forced and I need to, look a certain way and act a certain way and I need to accommodate your needs so you feel good and I feel a little bit bad. It's just not. I look for authenticity and how much we can both relax and like take off the masks that we have on for everybody else and actually bond through genuine experiences and goals and where we want to be. That's definitely one thing that I look for. And I thank God I have that with the girls in my group that I have the walking group and that actually came so easy with the girls in the walking group because I can be quite reserved and I'm more of an observer rather than a social butterfly that's out here, there, and everywhere. Um, but with the girls, I didn't feel like I had to perform. I was hosting the walk, but everyone just felt very inclusive and very like no one had to show up, so to speak. Um, so then that definitely put me. I feel like it's just if you're comfortable, how comfortable you feel in the presence of somebody else is probably the biggest green flag, and the biggest red flag is how uncomfortable and how much you kind of have to keep your mask on. That's that's probably as simple as I could make it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess for me, what I look for, being a happily married woman, I think for me, what I realize is that I can't be with friends who don't have like a healthy outlook in love and relationships and dating, because I respect men, I respect my man, and I love my marriage, the one that I have. So if someone, I don't think what I'm realizing is that I can't be friends with women who are still in that like energy of either hating men or not understanding the value of nuclear family for me would be one of my red flags. I don't know if that comes off as judgmental or not, but what I realize is if I can't share with you like the good news, that's something else, right? So if I can't share with you all the goodness, because all you're gonna hear from me is like blessings and like good news and positivity, even if I could lose everything and I'm still gonna be like, but guess what? This ended up like I'm always gonna see the positive to life. Like I said, the worst things could and they have happened to me. But I always find a way to just live with the positive because again, if it's gonna require the same amount of energy to be negative, why not just be positive? So if you're not someone who can receive good news or be happy with me and joyful with me and cheer me on the way that I'm going to, I cannot be friends with you. I just cannot be friends with you and I run away from you. So ladies, if you find yourself in this energy as well and you realize like I'm actually losing a lot of, women in my life or good girl friendships, um, we need to look internally and see maybe it's me, maybe it's my energy, maybe I'm doing something. And I've been both. I've been both women. I've been the woman who centers men before and I've been the woman who I am now. So don't feel guilty. We've all been the good and the bad. Like we can't just be one or the other. Like, I know for a fact, I am a villain in someone's story. I know for a fact, and that's okay. We're imperfect. We're not perfect. But take note and catch on to those women who are not inspiring you or making you feel less than, or you feel like you have to dim your light so that they could shine. Let me tell you something. I do not feel good whenever whenever a woman feels like they're either not enough or they feel like they can't shine because we're both kind of like shining. I don't do that. I'm like, no, you're coming with me. Like you're coming with me or like it's you right now. It's all about you. I'm okay with the term is not even stepping down, but like not being the center of attention, how you were saying, like I'm comfortable with doing that. So much so, I'm gonna share a quick little story time before we close out. I remember in one of my churches, what we did, and I think I was like 18, 17, I cannot remember. But we had like the Grammys. We were in our church, it was like a playful, like the Grammys thing, and it was a huge party for Christmas, and everybody showed out in their best gown. And it was, I think, about like 100 to 150 people. It was really fun. Regardless, towards the end, people casted their votes of like who was the best dressed, who was like the funniest, who is like who's the tallest or like who, whatever. And for me, they ended up selecting me for like who's the prettiest one out of like the whole group. And there's obviously a lot of women. And so I remember when I received the award, I was like, first of all, thank you, but like no, thank you. I think everybody is, all the women are beautiful. And there's actually a picture that they caught of like me inviting all the women up on stage and being like, don't, I kind of lectured because who was it ran by? It was ran by men. So I kind of lectured them. I'm like, don't do this. Like, why are you guys inspiring other women to compete with each other for beauty? Like, don't do that. But anyway, I invited all the women on stage and I was like, you are all like beautiful. Don't allow these awards make you feel less than. And so that's the kind of friend that I am. And that's the kind of women that I also want to attract. And what I realize is the more that I step into that, the more I avoid maybe toxic women. So that's my take on that. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
No, I've absolutely loved this conversation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for being a part of the of this experience and of this podcast. I really appreciate your time. I know that your time is very valuable, and I hope that, all your endeavors go very well. Like you're doing such a good job, and I truly believe in what you do and in your calling. And so I hope that we can both keep growing in this career that we are establishing for ourselves. And where can my ladies find you? Where can they show you support? What are your handles? What are you doing? Please share with us.
So it's the same handle, Girls Talk Sense, on both TikTok and Instagram. And I do have a podcast, Girls Talk Sense, but to be honest, I've neglected it. That one also was out of my comfort zone. So maybe I need to branch back into stepping out of my comfort zone again and starting that back up. So yeah, Girls Talk Sense everywhere pretty much.
Awesome. Well, ladies, you heard it. Please go give her a follow. Please support her. You have no idea how much that means for us because we do sacrifice time with our loved ones, with ourselves sometimes just to provide this valuable information to you. So please, if you have the time, follow us, support us, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being a part of the Carla Eli experience. Goodbye.
Amazing. Thank you. Bye.